Hello there. This session is one of your primary and the first sessions on the applications of the grammar that you've learned so far. In specific, what we are looking at are these error types that you will come across in your exam. Now, the first of these error types that we will concentrate on in this session would be on agreement. Now, when we talk about agreement, remember that there are primarily three different forms of agreement that your exam will test you on. First and foremost is the noun pronoun agreement. Second one is how does a pronoun agree with another pronoun in a context? And the third agreement is what is known as the subject verb agreement. In fact, subject verb agreement is one of the most popular or well known areas of agreement for student community. But then again, what students usually tend to forget and overlook is the fact that agreement is not just limited to subject verb. It can also be with respect to noun and pronoun. It can also be with respect to pronoun and pronoun. So what we will look at is we will look at each of these aspects in great detail and see what are all the different testing areas and skills that the exam will test you on, and see how we have to use our understanding of grammar to actually ace this agreement error type as such. Now, take a look at what you see on your screen is the first model, which is your noun pronoun agreement. Now, this is extremely simple. What this says is this. This says that when you have a singular noun, then that singular noun must agree with a singular pronoun that references to the singular noun in the context. Or when you have a plural noun, that plural noun must agree with the plural pronoun that references to the plural noun in the context. So let's understand this with a very simple example. Look at this sentence here. This says the Association of Allied Doctors, a large organization very popular in medical circles, recently indicated that they would expand into other countries. Now, a couple of things that you need to note here in this particular sentence. Now, the sentence is made to look a little complicated by introducing a lot of information to the sentence. Now, this is how your exam will actually trick you into thinking that the sentence structure is absolutely fine, because they include various different kinds of multiple ideas into the context, thereby trying to confuse you in trying to recognize and see how to spot agreement between noun and pronoun, or pronoun and pronoun, or subject and verb. But let's understand the sentence in a much simpler way. Let's break this down first. This says that the Association of Allied Doctors. So here we are talking about the Association of Allied Doctors. So the subject or the noun that is in focus here is the association. It is not the allied doctors. Now this is a prepositional phrase, Association of Allied Doctors. Now the subject here would be association. This being singular, you would expect that any reference of a pronoun for this singular subject must be singular. So now look at this part that talks about a large organization very popular in medical circles. Now this is what you call as a modifier. Now modifier, as the name suggests, is nothing but something that modifies some other part of your sentence. Now in your basics class on grammar, you've learned that adjectives and adverbs are kinds of modifiers because they tend to modify a noun or a verb or an adjective or another adverb and things like that. So they are modifiers. So modifiers can be words, they can be phrases also. So here this part that talks about a large organization very popular in medical circles is actually talking about this subject, which is the Association of Allied Doctors. So it's talking about the association. So there is also a clue in this modifier to indicate that this article is your clue to understand that your subject is now singular. So it's referring to the association, not the doctors. Now, so the Association of Allied Doctors, if you remove this part between your commas, or if you remove your modifier and read the sentence, your sentence should still make grammatical sense to you. So read it that way, omitting the modifier, so that you'll be able to understand if there is an error in the actual intended meaning of the sentence, or if there is no error. So now read it without the modifier. The Association of Allied Doctors recently indicated that they would expand into other countries. Now, had you initially, when we read the entire sentence as a whole, it didn't really seem like there was any error in the sentence as such. But when you remove the modifier, identify what the subject is, and you understand that there is a reference of they here, which is a pronoun. So the they is actually referring to doctors, when in fact the pronoun should be referring to this subject or the noun, which is the association. Since association is singular, the pronoun here should be it and not they. So the correction to this sentence would be to actually rephrase and rewrite they with it. That makes this sentence grammatically correct. So this is a simple example of what is known as the noun pronoun agreement. Let's look at pronoun pronoun agreement. Now in this pronoun pronoun agreement, just like in the noun pronoun agreement, when you have a singular pronoun, then any other reference of that or usage of that pronoun in the context must also be singular. Likewise, if the pronoun is plural, then a reference of that should again be plural. It's as simple as that. Now, what is important and key here is to understand what you've learned earlier in your earlier grammar class on this concept of distributive pronouns. Now, we've already learned that distributive pronouns are always singular. They are always singular. So your distributive pronouns can be listed as, let's say, you have anyone, someone. This one part can also be replaced with body. So you can say anybody, somebody. Likewise, you can have one. So anyone, someone, no one, or anybody, somebody, nobody. Or you can also talk about either, neither. So all these pronouns are what are known as distributive pronouns. You can also talk about each, every. So everybody, each one person, and things like that. So all these are distributive pronouns. Now distributive pronouns, remember, are always singular, which means any reference to that particular distributive pronoun should always be singular again. Let's take a look at this example. The sentence says, someone in this class forgot their school bag. Someone is a distributive pronoun. This is singular. Because this pronoun is singular, any reference of that pronoun with another pronoun must be singular, but there is plural, so this is incorrect. So you have to now replace this there with his or her. This is exactly what this point says. Anyone, someone, always go with he, she, him or her, or his or her, and not they, them, or their, because they, them, their are plural pronouns as such. So second example, one has to deal with his or her own situations in life. Now one is anyway singular, that's what we learned. But here's an exception here. One always goes with one. So you don't use he or she, him or her, his or her with one. So this context of using his or her with one is wrong. So you have to say something like, one has to deal with one's own situations in life. Now, why is it one's own situations in life? Because his and her are possessive pronouns. Hence, your reference here also should be a possessive pronoun. So the possessive case of one is one's. So you replace his or her with one's, and that makes the sentence correct. Now let's move on to looking at critical aspects of subject and verb agreement. Now, when we look at subject and verb agreement, fundamentally the concept is extremely simple. Just as we looked at noun pronoun agreement and pronoun pronoun agreement in terms of singularity and plurality, subject and verb agreement is the same. Now this says a verb must agree with its subject and number and person, which means that a singular subject takes a singular verb. Likewise, a plural subject takes a plural verb. This is what this concept says. Now, we always can look at a noun and easily recognize and identify if the noun is singular or plural. But how do we recognize if a verb is singular or plural? Now, for that, there's a little trick that we will learn here. Now, understand and remember this very, very standard structure. Now, let's say we have something like, we'll look at pronouns. We'll look at the first person singular I. Supposing I say something like, I live. This is a simple sentence. Or let's say I live nearby, whatever be the case. So here, I is singular. So the pronoun live is also singular. That's what your subject verb agreement says. But supposing you replace this I with they. They live is the correct form, which means that when you look at the verb live as a standalone verb, you cannot judge and say if live is singular or plural, because live, if it goes with I, is singular. Likewise, live if it goes with they is singular. Supposing you use live with, let's say, the third person. Let's say third person, he or she or it. And then you say he lives or she lives or it lives. So here lives is singular because your subject is singular. So just as we, let's say for example, you're talking about a simple noun like student. So for a wide variety of nouns, just by adding an s at the end of the word, you can make that singular noun into a plural noun. But that logic doesn't work with verbs. You have to be extremely cautious when you're dealing with verbs. So whenever you are in a doubt whether the verb is in a singular form or a plural form, just remember this example. You'll understand that it depends on what the subject is. So if you're not able to identify if the subject is singular or plural, just try to replace that subject with any of these pronouns, and then you will be able to recognize what the right form of the verb should be. Let's take a look at some standard rules along with examples for subject-verb agreement. Point number 1. When you have, let's say, two nouns, noun 1, noun 2, combined with the conjunction and, what should the sentence look like? Say for example, we look at a simple sentence that says, my friend and my cousins, what is the right verb? Is it is or is it are at the bookstore? Now, my friend and my cousins. So this is noun 1, this is noun 2. These two are combined with the conjunction and in the sentence. Now, noun 1 and noun 2. Both these are two separate nouns, implying that your subject is actually now not my friend. It is my friend and my cousin, so your entire subject is plural. Because your subject is plural, your verb must be plural. Between is and are, the plural form of the verb is are. So it is correct to say my friend and my cousins are at the bookstore and not is at the bookstore. So this is something very, very elementary that I'm sure you are quite well aware of. But let's take a look at a few different versions of the same and see how the rule changes. Now let's take a look at another version of the same concept that we learned here. Now here you have noun 1, noun 2 again combined with the conjunction and. Now, but here what would happen if noun 1 and noun 2 express a singular idea? Now let's understand this as an example. This says that social and political development, what is the correct word, is or are important for any country? Now at the very outset, the moment you look at this sentence, you'll be tempted to say that the answer is are. But understand here that we are talking about social and political development. So it looks like you have noun 1, noun 2 combined with a conjunction and. But understand that this development is common to both social and political. So it's something very, very mathematical. So you look at it as x plus y times of a. So this a is your development, x, y are social, political, plus is your and. So here, this social and political development is actually now a singular idea because we're talking about social and political development and not independently social development and political development. Had this been the case, then your subject would be treated as plural and your verb would be plural. But here your subject is expressing a singular idea and hence the verb must be is and not are. That's exactly what the point here also says. Is correct because noun 1, noun 2 express a single idea and hence must be treated as singular. So the verb is also singular. Now say for example, you're looking at another sentence that says something like the president and let's say CEO. What is the right form of the verb? Is it is or are at the meeting? Something of this sort. Supposing you have a sentence like this. Then here again, the president and CEO. The is common to both president and CEO, which means that this is just one single person. President and CEO are two separate designations of the same person. So the subject is singular, so the verb would be singular. It would go with is and not are. So this, be a little cautious when you deal with two nouns combined with and. Not all the time would the subject be plural. Point number 3. Again, when you have noun 1, noun 2 combined with and, this is a third version where you're combining noun 1, noun 2 with your conjunction and. So here, what does the rule say? This says, if the subject consists of two singular nouns joined by and preceded by a distributive pronoun like each or every, then you have to treat the subject as singular. For example, you have each boy, each girl. So the boy and girl, they are singular nouns. There are two singular nouns. And these singular nouns are preceded by the distributive pronouns each and each. So though these two are combined with the conjunction and, you still treat this subject as singular. It is not plural. Because this is singular, your verb has to be singular. Now, here comes the confusion. Between win and wins, what is the singular verb? In case you're in a doubt, go back to what we discussed a little while back. Now that you understood that the subject is singular, replace this with a singular pronoun. Now, you're talking about each boy, each girl, singular pronoun. So we're saying each one person. So each one person can be understood as he or she. So we understood that when you have he, the verb will take the form he lives. That's what we learned a little while back. So lives would be the singular form. So here between win and wins, wins would be the singular subject and not win. So your correct answer would be each boy and each girl wins a ticket to the show. Let's look at a fourth rule, or the fourth variant of when you combine two nouns, noun 1 and noun 2. But here you're not combining them with the conjunction and, but you are replacing them with any of these conjunctions. You replace them with along with, as well as, apart from, or in addition to, or together with, or with. If you replace the and with any of these, let's see how the rule changes. Let's understand this with an example here. This says, my friend along with my cousins. So here you have one, my friend. This is singular. And then here you have my cousins. This is plural. So you have noun 1, noun 2 combined with this along with. So what would be the verb? Is or are at the bookstore. Now check what the rule says. In this usage, the verb always agrees with the first noun or the pronoun. So whatever your first noun or the first pronoun, which means that if your first noun or pronoun is singular, then your verb is singular. If your first noun or pronoun is plural, then your verb is plural. It does not matter whether the second noun is singular or plural. That's what the essence of this rule is. So now this first noun is my friend, it is singular. It means that your verb must be singular. So your singular verb would be is and not are. So it doesn't matter even if you have a second noun as plural. Now look at it this way. Had the sentence been written in a different way, had the sentence started with my cousins, with my friend, what would be the right verb? Is or are, dot dot dot. Now here your first verb or your first noun is plural. As per this rule, you're combining noun 1, noun 2 using one of these aspects here, one of these conjunctions here. So obviously your verb here will agree with the first noun. Because in this case your first noun is plural, the correct usage here would be are and not is. That's how you understand this particular point. Look at another variant. Let's say you again have noun 1, noun 2, now combined this way. So you combine noun 1, noun 2 with either or neither nor, or not only but also. So if you combine them with any of these correlative conjunctions, then how would the rule be? Check this rule. This says, in this usage, the verb always agrees with the second noun or the pronoun, or the second or the noun or pronoun that is closest to the verb. So understand this example here. Either my friend or my cousin. So you're combining two nouns, my friend, my cousins, with either or. So either noun 1 or noun 2, is or are the bookstores. As per this question, your verb agrees with the nearest noun or the second noun or noun 2. Since noun 2 is plural, your verb has to be plural. It is not is, it is are. That's how you understand this particular point.